Yay! Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 344.
Are you sure?
Nope. It's up there somewhere. We're very excited about tonight's show because we get to bring on some of our dear friends that we haven't spoken to or seen in well over a year. Our friends Jeff and Jenn Fisher. They were Portland trail runners, ultra runners that ran all over the Northwest and West Coast. At the end of 2019, they moved to Alaska. And they were living they still are, living the Alaska frontier lifestyle. And I can't wait to talk to them tonight. This is going to be a two-part series, I think, because we're going to talk a little bit about some trail running stuff tonight and life in Alaska and what it's like to transition from city life to more rural life up in Alaska. And then I think in part two, we'll cover some additional things that have been going on in their life and sort of like the parallels between ultra running and mushing and that sort of thing. So we don't know when part two is going to be, but we're excited to have them on tonight for part one. We're going to dig in and ask some just amazing questions with some of our favorite people on the planet. So without further ado, welcome to Ginger Runner Live 344. The show begins now. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 344. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. We're doing a little bit of a later show tonight. Got the points on. Got the points going. So we thank you for being a little bit patient. We're doing the 6 p.m. Pacific start tonight.
Which I think is a popular start time amongst a lot of viewers.
We have a lot of viewers that really do enjoy it. Our guests tonight are even an hour earlier than us, so it's sort of the perfect medium of 5 p.m. for them, 6 p.m. for us, so it's perfect. We're very excited about tonight's show because we get to sit down with some of our dear friends in the ultra running world. They are a fantastic duo of ultra runners and adventurers that are currently living in Alaska, but we are excited to have them because for the last year and a half-ish, they've been in Alaska, but they lived in Portland, so they basically went from city life, Northwest life, to the rural life in Alaska, sort of off-grid living and running and training. And we're going to talk to them all about what that transition has been like and how running and adventures are different that far north in the wilds of Alaska, which is something that's just fascinated Kim and I for so long. So it's really kind of cool to be able to talk to someone who's in the midst of this transition. And we're calling this part 1 of 2 because I think this is going to be a neat opportunity. They have some wonderful parallels between the ultra running world and the mushing world that they were also have been a part of. So that will save for part 2. Mm-hmm. And tonight we're going to kind of begin to dig into the actual training and weather and trails and the races that they've been up to even as recently as this last weekend. So our friends Jeff and Jenn Fisher are going to be on the show tonight. I'm pretty damn excited about it.
Same.
Yeah. It's not just myself. It's not just our guests. There's also Kim.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine. What's up, everyone? Kim Tashima Newberry here, as always. If you're new, welcome. We are live. We'll be bringing Jeff and Jenn on in just a second. Because we are live, you can ask our wonderful guests questions. So if you have questions for our guests, just pop them into the chat room.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just noticed that there was a little bit of feedback. That's I didn't mute our guest audio. That's my fault, so I apologize about that.
How dare you?
I know. What is this? My first time live streaming. So we have it resolved here, but once we bring on our guests, we'll have the audio all situated and stuff like that. So I apologize a little bit about that.
And
feedback.
Yes, everyone, we're both wearing plaid. A lot of people are like, plaid, like the plaid game. I'm like, it's 90% of our wardrobe.
And I don't think I've changed this shirt
since last
weeks.
March.
Yeah, probably since last March. It has been a long time. We also like to start our show by thanking some individuals, and we actually have a cool thing going on tonight. We did it at the beginning of February. We're going to do it tonight since it's the first night of March. But we're teaming up with the Chuckanut 50K, which is a local 50K total badass race with race directors Tyler, Kevin, and Chrissy. We are essentially announcing some winners to their virtual run later in this show. So Chrissy put together a little video that we'll be showing, very similar to what we did a month ago, announcing prize winners and all that stuff. That is a virtual run that is currently happening. It's ongoing, and it's a lot of fun. We're excited to be partnered with them on this, and we'll be announcing those winners later in the show. So if you're here for that, stay tuned. It's It's going to be great. And we like to thank our Patreon crew. We call them the GR crew. You can go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. You can be a member of the GR crew. It is a fantastic group, a fantastic community of athletes from around the world. 2 individuals in particular at that top tier help make these shows happen each and every week. Brian Sands, incredibly inspiring individual who has been training so much in the last few years. He's lost 100 pounds in his running journey, ran his first marathon, his first 50K, his first 100-miler, and is currently training for a 200-plus mile event. It's just mind-blowing. And secondly, Rick Bjarnason and his company, cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They are a Canadian web design and web maintenance company. They actually redid the gingerrunner.com website. And it's awesome to have Rick back on board. He's been a longtime ultra runner as well and shreds some crazy trails up in the BC region.
One of the few to finish Tiger Claw and go, that wasn't so bad.
That's one of my favorite memories of Rick.
Wasn't so bad.
He ran our inaugural Tiger Claw and finished it. It was like, cool, what else you got? Like, totally talented ultra runner. So it's awesome to have him on board as well. Okay. They've been patiently waiting. Our wonderful friends, Jeff and Jenn Fisher, are here to join us. So without further ado, Jeff and Jenn Fisher. We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
You should have warned the audience.
We'll try to control our excitement here on this end a little bit better.
That's how excited we were. He just overrode the excitement.
Yeah.
For us.
Listen, we welcome pet interruptions of this show. I think it happens almost every episode at some point.
Yeah, there's a prerequisite to being a guest on Ginger Runner Live, and that's having a pet. Dogs take priority as well. We just happen to be dog lovers, but we know that you guys are dog lovers too. How many do you have currently residing outside of the camera frame?
3. We got
3
3.
is a crowd, so yeah.
Got 3 now.
There's one more hand between the two of us for one more, so I don't know.
That's awesome.
We are officially outnumbered, which is terrifying in some degree.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I hope when we do part 2, the number doubles. I hope we have 6 dogs.
Oh, wow.
10 dogs, who knows? That's a challenge.
Yeah, it's totally accepted up here in Alaska, so that's totally accepceptable.
We are so excited to have you guys on the show because I feel like there's been so much to catch up on. Let's set the stage because you lived in Portland. That's how we knew you. A lot of Northwest events and everything like that. Let's talk a little bit about your life in Portland and what you did there. How trail running was a part of your life in Portland before making the move to Alaska, and then we'll sort of dive into why and what brought you to Alaska and stuff like that. But let's talk about your Portland life first. About a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. A year and a half ago, Jeff and I had both been in Portland for around 10 years, Jeff a little bit longer than myself. And I moved up from Central Coast, California. Jeff came from the East Coast. I don't know how to share talking time, so this will be funny. So you can just jump right in and just take over.
We've had many couples on the show.
Yeah, you're not our first couple.
You're also dealing with 2 who also don't really know how to share talking time.
Okay, we're in good company. Don't be so modest. So we've been in Portland for a decade, and the community there, I mean, leaving jobs is one thing. Leaving a community was the thing. And it took a lot for us. We needed to do something so different in changing our lifestyle that we couldn't compare it to what we were leaving behind, because what the community that's still very much a part of us, we could never compare to, right? It's just so special. It's so unique. It built both Jeff and I into who we are in so many different levels of respect. And we grew into who we are with the support of the community trail running in the Pacific Northwest. And so we're like, all right, we're going to go somewhere where we don't, really know anybody. We don't know the community, completely out of that realm of everything that we were so comfortable with. And we wanted to do so for just more personal growth. And I mean, it's taught, things were so comfortable in Portland, and sometimes when you're in those situations, it's very easy to
kind of just be complacent in life. And I mean, my gosh, just the passion pursuit of trail running is something that takes you to amazing places. And, one beautiful thing about the Pacific Northwest is that, we still don't feel like we've seen it all. And that's awesome. Like, to leave a place and be like, oh, I haven't been there yet, so maybe when we come back, we'll go there. Or, it's nice to have those things to still go back to. But, I think we had made the choice that we were just feeling really comfortable, and we wanted to kind of maybe step out of the path and break our own trail, so to speak. The community of trail running was just so supportive and welcoming to me and to Jen, and we got to do some incredible things. So it was kind of like we wanted to take what we were inspired by people like you and Kim and other figures and friends in the community, and do something different. And so I had done some field work up in Alaska for a few summers, and then we took a sabbatical and came up to Alaska to the Kenai and spent some time with friends. And so I think there was a pull to come up here.
And that was in the fall of 2018.
Yeah.
So
2018,
yeah, just a magical time, like coming up here in the shoulder season. Yeah. It was spectacular for all the right reasons.
So there was a call to change things up. I mean, I had what I would consider my ideal job. I had, we had both had great jobs, but there was just something, we changed, we evolved, and it's okay to change. And I think I suffered a lot from kind of this feeling of guilt for well, if everything's great, why do you need to change it or stir things up? And I know I battled with that for about a year, and I just came to the conclusion, you know what? We change, we people evolve, and by stepping away from something so great, you allow space for another person to move in and take that space. And I think that's a really important thing. And that helped me kind of be comfortable with the idea to completely uproot and move up to Alaska.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We've had that conversation before, and just before anyone asks, Kim, we got a call from our vet. We've been waiting for a call all day from our vet, so Kim just had to step out to take that. I will catch her up to speed as soon as she steps back into the studio here. But that's something that we've had a conversation about in the past. Is sort of, when I moved from Seattle to Los Angeles, that was a big step because I left a great job. You would think a great life. Everything that I had and I needed was right here. Why would I drop everything to go to a city I don't know with no one that I know there and try to pursue something? In that case, it was acting back in 2007. And why would I give up all this to go essentially start from scratch? Yeah. And we've had that conversation, and it was a lot of, I would never, I'll never regret moving to LA. I would have always regretted not, just to at least try it. And I feel like, you guys lived in Portland. You guys have so many friends in this incredible community, and the trail running scene in Portland is next level. And to leave that, you obviously had to have a big draw, to pursue something like that is a big thing. Was there a transition period for you? I know when I moved to LA, it was, months to kind of figure out how does it work? So moving to the rural, dry cabins in Alaska, how long did it take to wrap your brain around, and what was that transition process like? Was it immediate, or are you still learning?
Yeah. It really hit me. So we've been working for Sled Dog Kennels for the last year. And so the first kennel that we had worked for is about an hour outside of Fairbanks, and that an hour outside of Fairbanks, it doesn't take long to enter into the wilderness. And I remember just this overwhelming feeling of nervousness once we kind of crested over this pass and dropped down into the Chattanooga Valley where we were. Mm. And I just it was an incredible amount of intimidation and kind of anxiety, but we kind of hit the ground running with what we were doing for the kennel pretty quick, and I don't think it was once we kind of transitioned into that life, it felt pretty natural.
I would say, we literally packed up our entire life into the back of our Tacoma. And so we had downsized so many of our personal belongings. So we were traveling very light. I mean, pretty dense for like a truckload full of dogs and stuff and whatnot, but like everything. And we left some stuff back in Portland with some friends. But we literally made the trek, right? We stayed with Gary Robbins and Linda and Reed and Artie for a night. And it was just really good to kind of have this send off. And when like Jeff was saying, we got up here, we had this beautiful drive and then came up and over the summit and dropped into the Chattanooga Valley, where we were like, wow, okay.
Yeah, this is happening.
This is happening. Like cell phone service is gone now. And we, pulled up into the driveway and it was like, bam, all right, unload your stuff, get it into the cabin. We'll show you around and here we go. Yeah. And that was the best way to kind of go, because it didn't really give us that time to think about, or to kind of long for. We just had to go. Yeah. And I think we really enjoyed that kind of just like, all right, time to get the hands dirty and jump into all that stuff. And and
there was immediate purpose. And I think right now some of the hardest things going on is right now. Actually, this is probably for us. We just spent the last year and a half helping other people achieve their goals. And I think we'll talk more about that later. But right now we're at a point where we are ready to kind of, live life for ourselves and to continue on our path. That was one thing that we battled with and talked about was, okay, you leave your career to go do something, you live life for the experience, what happens. And, careers don't just disappear once you step away from the job force. Your resume is still there, your career is still there, and it's okay to do that, and you can come back to it. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Mm-hmm.
And same thing, like with you moving to LA, like no regrets, like we have no regrets coming here. The amount of invaluable knowledge that has been bestowed and earned on our part has been something like, I feel like I just feel so much more resourceful as a person, to be able to help somebody else, in multifaceted ways. Yeah. So like, it's just been really great in all of that.
But I think so for us right now, I'd say is an interesting time of just in transition. So, so we're and especially during COVID. I mean, that's the
other thing is we were talking last night just to sort of catch up a little bit before tonight's show, and I was like, so you guys have been up there for like 2.5 years now, right? And you both kind of went, no, dude, we got here just before COVID, and I kind of went, oh my God, I forgot. COVID is like the year that doesn't exist. It's gone. But that's crazy that you made this transition from comfortable city life to rural backcountry life and Alaska living during like months before a big pandemic hit. How did that affect everything? Was this additional layer of stress on everything on top of that?
Can I answer first?
Yeah, go for it. The answer is always yes.
So when COVID hit, nothing really changed for us because we were so far removed from everything. So what hit us the most is knowing that our friends were, in the midst of heavily dense populated cities, dealing with a global pandemic, and friends, loved ones. It all of a sudden just came out of nowhere. But we were in this like little Narnia nook where no one was around us, and we weren't at risk. I mean, we would have to come into town for supply runs, but we didn't have exposure. And Alaska is kind of like that in general.
I mean, the saying is like Alaskans have been prepared for COVID for decades, years and years and years, because people just tend to come up here. They tend to be more, especially people who live on the fringes of the cities and in the wilderness. Like, we isolate all the time. Like, that's why we moved up here. For COVID. We moved up here to socially isolate and to not talk to people and to live with, dogs and whatnot. So it was a very, I think for us, it was just very surreal to see it unfolding for people in more densely populated areas. Sure. But it is amazing how quickly, even though you live remotely, how quickly it can come close to you. And we had a couple of moments where, people were coming to do work on properties, or they were a tourist that was, coming for, a sled dog ride. And you get a phone call, a couple of days later, and they're like, well, so actually I was at the bar last night and I ended up, coming in contact with a COVID case. Like, wow, you can be 60 miles from the road system from anyone else, any other person,
and you
can still be at risk.
But that just that's just the magnitude of this particular pandemic too. I mean, you think you're safe, but no one is safe.
It was just really hard watching other people more going through it.
Yeah, and now that we're back in the city, it is like COVID protocol across the board. Like we are hunkered down. We live in an incredible place where we have this vast landscape to enjoy and run in and feel pretty, safe. Like unfortunately, we're not in Forest Park anymore where it's super cramped and people are longing to get outdoors. Like this is like COVID has pushed people out, which is great. And it's also a double-edged sword, right? And so we're still kind of in this place where there's just not that many people to contend with out there on the trails. And so it's
and I mean, Jeff and Jen are in Fairbanks now, so I mean, being a little bit more city life again is probably there's probably comfort in that. You're closer to probably resources that you need and stuff like that. But then there's also this additional layer of the population's
there's
far
more
denser.
Humans.
Yeah, there's more humans.
Yeah.
And the temptation. There's a huge temptation to want to go see people, and that's something that we didn't have. But now that we're kind of living more of our own, I know it sounds strange, but now that we actually are making our own choices in life, and are the day is ours. There's a temptation to push that. And
temptation is an interesting word. It's like that sense of we're such community grounded people. Like I recharge in connecting with my community. And so it's like, they're right there, but they're not right there because we can't have them yet. And everyone knows this feeling right now.
Yeah.
And so, so that in itself, living isolated, living in a time of COVID, it's all.
But we feel good. We feel good to be here.
Yeah, and it's nice to have the internet because actually we tried to get Jeff and Jen on months ago, and
the test run didn't go so well.
Yeah, they actually had. How long did you have to travel to get to an internet signal?
At that point, I think
hours, right?
Hour, I think like an hour. Yeah,
we were
about an hour snow machine.
Oh, 2 hours.
2 hour snow machine ride would have put us back in normal internet. Yeah.
And it was one of those things where like, hey, what are you guys doing next Monday? And I think both of you were like, well, we need to see. It wasn't like, oh, I've got this schedule and this schedule. It was like, we don't know if the snowstorm is going to cause the roads to be snowmobile worthy or ski or it was kind of one of those. Shit, do they even have internet?
We need to go on a journey to talk to you. Basically.
So this feels great. Obviously, the internet's strong where you are now. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Hi.
Kim is up to speed. She's up to speed with the conconversation.
So sorry, I had to duck out. I may need to go again.
That's fine.
I
gave them the heads up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Did you give everybody the heads up?
Brief heads up there. But we do have a live chat room here. Jameson Michael's in the chat, which is fantastic. Jameson's asking a bunch of questions in regards to Alaska. What kind of food you guys eat up there?
Has also mentioned how lovely Jeff's hair is.
Yeah, Jameson loves your hair, Jeff.
So nice. Oh man, give me goosebumps.
All right.
I think this is going to bring me to the next sort of topic of conversation in regards to training and running in Alaska. We have a member of our GR crew, Chris, aka Trail Runner, here in the chat, who is an Alaskan resident and lives in a dry cabin. And
he just said that he hasn't seen another human in days.
Yay!
So it's yay for no humans. So this is how I want to dig into is because in Portland, you have access to trails at your back door, right? But there's still traffic and there's parking lots and there's all these things that you probably have to deal with on a regular basis, car break-ins and everything. In Alaska, how has that transition been? Where, from adventurers' perspectives, how has it been as far as what I would hope or imagine trail running is up there?
Yeah. Well, I would say so. Alaska is a very vast state. It's huge, and so you have so many different eco zones. Like you have rainforests, you have jagged peaks, you have tundra, you have taiga, you have boreal zones. So really everything you can imagine in terms of terrain you have here. For us, we live in the Fairbanks area, so we have we have kind of this taiga zone, which is a very kind of a swampy, kind kind of black spruce, white spruce area. So and then we also have mountains. We have the White Mountains, which are about an hour away, which are gorgeous, kind of weathered mountain range. Not quite as dramatic as like the Alaska range, which tends to be more jagged, a little younger mountain range. Kind of indicative when people see like photos of Anchorage, they'll see that dramatic land backdrop of jagged peaks, and that's the Chugach. And so what's really unique about it, and it kind of goes to talk about the trails here, is the seasonality of trails. And it's something that I never thought about, that, oh, okay, so we have trails, but then they're not there in the summertime. And I was like, whoa, that's new to me. And so because it's so wet and swampy in the Fairbanks area, in the summertime, there's no trails. But in the wintertime, when we get the snow, people will put in trails and will groom trails. And it's like so extensive. I mean, out our door.
Backpedal a little bit, because there are summer trails in Fairbanks. They're just,
Sure.
there are like boggy areas where like you can't access those trails that exist in the winter. And so like, again, the zones kind of that you're working with.
I mean, you've got the higher land and lower, lowlands. But it's just interesting to me that, something like we would ask people like, oh, like, do you guys go like here in the summertime? Do you go to this cabin? You're like, no, you can't get to that cabin in the summertime. It's swamp to get to it. But in the wintertime, it's fair game. And a lot of Alaskans will say like, oh, they can't wait till the wintertime, because then we actually really get to explore the landscape, whether it's ski or snow machine or dog mushing. It really opens you up to allow you to explore. Also wildlife. You don't have, the bears are hibernating. So that is another, really attractive thing about winter.
My favorite thing about winter.
winter recreation. So like, kind of like our trails are out our door. I wouldn't be surprised if in the summertime we lose over half of them. Just based on where they are.
I mean, they're still there. They're just like grew up. I mean, they're probably more Pacific Northwesty and mud all the time, like that kind of thing.
Well,
but with that, like, I guess you have to look at trail running here as kind of a 2-season thing. You've got your very short window of the summer, which is incredible because we live in a state that has 24 hours of daylight in the prime summer months. And so you want to go for a trail run at like 2 a.m. Cool. No headlamp necessary. Like, let's go play. Wow. And in the winter time, it's like, okay, cool. Now we have this entirely new network that we didn't get to play on for the summer months. But it's winter time now. So now we have to be, there are a lot of other things to take into consideration when you want to go out on that same run, just with the temperatures here and whatnot.
And it's just really, it's really cool to watch the different users of the trails out here. So we have like in our trails, like on a given day, we could see snow machines, we could see a dog team, we could see cross-country skiers or fat bikers. And so the mixed use of the trails out here is really fun. And I love seeing trail users sharing trails. I think one of the problems that we saw, especially in like Portland, was there was just so much friction between different types of trail users, whether it be bikers and runners and horseback riders or or four-wheelers even. Like there just was that tension. And here there's such a really nice kind of organic respect for recreation and yielding to different type of users. So that's really nice. And like the snow machiners are the ones who pack down the trail that then the runners and the skiers will use. So it's really refreshing and nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is wild to hear about because it's not that I didn't expect Alaska to have these, have a winter season. I feel like winter sports and winter recreation there is bonkers and probably incredible. I didn't realize that it could be so winter is the season that everyone's excited for.
I think that's what I was surprised to hear too, of like, oh, I can't wait for winter so I can actually explore. These parts.
It's wild. And in regards to summer running and being able to run at 2 a.m. and that sort of thing, does that mess with your training? Jen just placed second place in a local race. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But training for something like that, do you train all year round, or is it very seasonal? So are you not running during the winter months, or are you?
It kind of feels like college, and here's what I'm gonna parallel I'm gonna make. So you've got a final exam, right? And the way I operated in college is I found every excuse not to study and prepare for that up until the last minute. And then it was like go time, like cram, cram, cram. My brain is a sponge, like do it all. And that's what summer running is like. Like winter, it's a natural transition with the season. Like you cut back, you transition into new multi-sport activities. But with summer, you're like, I have 24 hours of daylight for 3 months. Like, let's go. And so, so it's just like you're squeezing every ounce of this time out. And it's like the Pacific Northwest too, right? Like the summertime is amazing, but you can run at 6 a.m. You can work late and you can run at 12 a.m. You have more time to do more training.
Right.
And so it's like also a double-edged sword. And because you're like, I want to do all of the running because this place is incredible to do all of the running. And not, go completely burn myself out before a race or something like that.
But training, I guess. Well, I think training for us has just been a little bit different with running, and like running over the last year and a half for me has been. I'd say I took. Very minimal running. Went months without running, and that's another thing that I think we as runners sometimes feel guilty about is maybe not having that inspiration, or just there isn't the time to do it, and it's like, well, like. Am I still a runner? Am I, God, I'm seeing everyone do all these epic, runs. And I think it's okay to take a break. I actually just talked to a friend moments before I hopped on with you guys. And he's like, yep, I took the whole 2020 off. and essentially that's what I did. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, and I love that. Like to me, I think that's a really awesome thing. And I think that's okay. And I think that should be celebrated and not something that makes people feel guilty about. Or
not at all. Yeah.
And especially during the year that we had with the pandemic and everything, it's so easy to be hard on yourself. But I mean, we're all just trying to survive here.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Good days and bad days. And if the majority happen to be bad running days, that's okay. If the majority happen to be non-running days, that's also okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. The other thing I kind of wanted to touch on was I have so many fond memories running with Alaskan runners in races and stuff like that. Like I was telling you last night, I have a memory from Cascade Crest running with some Alaska runners who came down to run that 100-miler, and I'm suffering through the storms, barely holding on and hypothermic, and the Alaskan runners are running in shorts and short sleeves with maybe some little gloves. And
no crew, no pacers,
just
like
to the point.
Yeah.
They're there to run 100 miles, and like the Alaskans found one another on the course sort of thing. Like they're all kind of running the same pace. And like, let's just hang together. We'll get through this. And they're very much like, hey, you want to just run with us? We'll just get you through it. And I kind of go,
you're like, do you have any extra gloves, man?
do you have defibrillators? So that's something that I I've held on to since then is the grit and the sort of like different mentality that Alaskan runners have. And touch on that, because I think you've mentioned it last night, sort of experience with local runners that you've come across that are just out there to train. And I'm curious how it's different from runners down here. Do we say down here in the mainland? Say down
lower
here in
48.
Lower 48 in the lower 48 versus Alaskan runners. How has it sort of been different for you guys?
Well, I think again, so we should definitely be careful about saying like Alaska. I would definitely not generalize Alaska in general, just because Fairbanks is very different than Anchorage or the Kenai Peninsula. Mm-hmm. So I want to respect the other parts of Alaska, just because I think it is very different. For up in Fairbanks, I would say that Fairbanks isn't flashy. If people are interested in Fairbanks and what's hip and trendy and like, are there cool coffee shops? And there's one. There's like one of each. But it's not like a flashy city, and I think that's indicative of the people that are here too. I mean, what's really cool, what I have found is there's not a lot of people really aren't pretentious. I find they're a lot less worried about what other people think about them, and this is just my observation. And I like when you see people out on the trail, I just get this feeling of like just genuine I want to be out in the mountains. I want to be out in the, on the winter trails and enjoying it for the purity of it, not maybe for the gram or for anything like that. And I think also how people don't really, I think, identify as like runners out here. They're like, yeah, we're skiers, because Nordic skiing, cross-country skiing is absolutely king out in here in Fairbanks. Like, people come from all over the world to go to school at UAF, to ski. Yeah. And so someone will say, yeah, like, I'm a skier, and then I run in the summer to be in shape for skiing. Right. But the reality is, like, no, you're a trail runner. Like, you just don't identify as one, which was really interesting. Like, because we're like, I'm a trail runner, like, hashtag, mountain ultra trail, hashtag ultra running, hashtag trail runner, hashtag not skis, hashtag not skis. Yeah, like this, we tend to label ourselves. I think we over-label ourselves, and maybe as runners, in the lower 48 to some degree. But here it's like, yeah, I mean, like, a good example is Jen's race. The race that she just did. I mean, I think the guy who won the run.
This is great. This guy, Brian Atkinson. So it was a multi-sport race. There were fat biking, skiing, and running. There was a 55-mile and a 26-mile distance.
This is the Chena River?
Chena River to Ridge, yeah.
Got it.
It was,
There was a 26-miler and I think a 55-miler.
Yeah, I just said that.
Oh, cool.
One more time.
So now we all know 2 distances. And it was really cool when we got to the parking area that we then like jogged down the trail to go check in and everything. People were literally, because of the conditions, they were changing their disciplines left and right. Like, fat bikers turned into skiers, and skiers turned into runners, and runners turned into skiers. Like, everyone was like, oh, like, I don't want to run this today, or, oh, I'm not fat biking this, I'm definitely going to ski this. Yeah. And the guy who won that was running it intended on skiing it, hadn't really run at all this winter, and just like hopped off his skis into the running race and just like sent it. And and it was just like, boof, like mind expanding, like, oh my gosh, all these multi-sport athletes that are just so disciplined to be dedicated to like being powerhouses in multi areas of recreation, because they want to just go play. And all of this is like playtime for them. And you can tell that, but they're also just these like badass athletes that are good at a lot of things to be able to, enjoy the area. So yeah, it was really cool to watch this guy be like, oh, I'm not skiing today, I'm running. It's going to be a runner's race.
I love that, just, or like flexibility. Like, I don't know how, I guess I don't know many multi
it's harder for races. Me, I think. Like, I loved seeing it. And I'm also like, are we at a trail running race? Are we at, like, what am I
What
at
is
right
this?
now?
Yeah. That's got to be wild. It's just not really something you see here, like down here at all. You might see multiple distances happening. So you could go, I'm running the 50 miler, but I'm going to switch to the 50K or whatever. But
there's like a few like mountain bike and trail running.
Yeah, a couple duos.
In, like BC.
Yeah. I love the idea of switching at the start line.
Yeah, like, I feel like our friend Alex, I mean, you guys know Alex, she would like thrive up here with all of the like, I'm going to do this sport and then this sport and then this sport. Like, I can wear all these hats sort of thing. And I'm like, I just want to run.
I mean, it just goes again to the whole multi-sport culture of being inclusive and instead of working against each other or, budding cultures, just kind of bringing those together, bringing fat bikes together to skis and running. I love like that. It just feels right. Like, it feels very cool. And
I mean, I was making so many jokes about, I was asking skiers if I could hop on their tails. And then fat bikers were telling me to like get out of here because I was post holing and like chewing up the trail for their, and I'm like, okay, cool. Can I pass you real quick? And there was just so much humor, like going back and forth between like, I've never ran hard behind a skier who's skiing hard and we're in the same race. And then like, I'm like, all right, see you later on the uphills, and then on the 10-mile descent, all of a sudden I have these little like birds just flying by me like, sucker. And so it was just so, it was so great, it was so different, and it was scary because it was my first time doing a winter race here, but once you got going, like once any start line starts, you're just kind of like, okay, I'm in it now I just have to manage. So
we'll dig into the Chena River and Ridge here in just a second, because Jen did quite well despite I guess, not knowing it was happening so soon in her schedule. So we'll touch on that. But of course, we have live questions for Jeff and Jen. Let's get to some of those.
Yeah, and just a reminder, if you guys have any last questions for Jen and Jeff, just pop them into the chat room. John has a question. John says, how would you recommend a trail runner spend a week-long trip in Alaska?
That's a great question.
Is there a best time of year to come? Any recommendations?
Oh, man, yes. One, okay, can I start?
No, please.
Okay.
Yes. The answer, yes.
Correct.
I highly recommend one, and this is in all honesty, like taking a bear safety course, or educating yourself on the bears up here, because they are a factor. Like, I'm speaking about this because I'm very afraid of bears, and the more I know about them, the less afraid I become. So wherever you're running,
that's when they get you.
You see what I have to deal
Poor
with?
Jeff.
I'm feeling good about this. I'm like, Smitty, I'm not afraid of this run, and just like, and this is when they get you.
Complacency kills. Complacency kills.
But so I would say, like, just know where you're gonna go. There are so many incredible areas to run in this state. Like, the Kenai Peninsula and Anchorage and kind of south in the state has really great options. Our friends Susie and Sarah came up from the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, they did it right.
This summer, and they did like exactly that. A week, it might have maybe a week or 2 weeks. And they ran all over Hatcher Pass, Crow Pass. We did Kasugi Ridge together. They were down, somewhere in Anchorage around a lake that was really, I mean, they just like set it up right. So there are a lot of areas to explore. I think it's hard to.
One thing, I was talking to a trail runner about this a few weeks ago. I don't do Strava, but apparently Strava is a really good resource to see these trails, because there's not a very big, like, defined trail running community or like clubs or resources, but you can look at where races have been, and usually there's tracks. And my friend who lives out in Anchorage said that using Strava has really helped him see other routes that people are using. I think there's so much. I mean, if I were to do it, the bear thing is definitely need to be cautious about wildlife. Definitely, you carry bear spray with you and have that close by. But like traveling, so I definitely gotta like rent a car. And basically, I think traveling between like Anchorage and Fairbanks, there's so much in between there that you can explore. And I know for us, a good spot around us, there's a trail called the Pinnell Trail, which is in the White Mountains, and I think it's about 27 miles point to point. So you kind of have to poke and find these. But I think just searching races and looking at the race courses is a safe way to do it.
And the cool thing, sorry.
Oh no, I was just you brought up wildlife at the beginning of that, and I feel like we've been wanting to know more about it.
You didn't see my hands get sweaty when Jen started talking about bears.
I know. I was watching my safe space.
And AK Trail Runner in the chat, who again, AK, I'm assuming stands for Alaska. We know Chris, it does. But he says Kasugi Ridge is a personal favorite. 50K of heaven. It's
amazing.
And Chris also says, take a bear spray defense course. Is that a thing?
Yes. A lot of people think that just having bear spray means you're gonna deploy it properly, and all you have to do is like point the thing and like bear goes away. That there's a lot more to take into consideration with testing, with knowing winds, with knowing exactly the distance between you and the bear that you actually need to fire for it to be effective. Bear spray safety is also,
and just knowing where you're running. Like, is the area wide open? There's a lot of great kind of boreal tundra-like terrain where you'd be able to see, from a long distance. Also, that's something that, like, are you running in tight, there's not a lot of single track, at least where we are, but are you running in really, thick bushes or willows? Another thing, one of our friends, Erin here, she is the queen of hay bear, being loud, like yelling,
hey, Mr. Bear.
Hey, Mr. Bear, like every, few minutes or around every corner. It's kind of what you feel comfortable about. It's not just bears. I mean, moose are also can be very unpredictable. I think that's something that not a lot of people think about, is
especially the moose in Anchorage. We hear a lot of gnarly stories about those guys
just
being all jerks.
Wow.
Yeah, just the closer to cities, they tend to be more comfortable with humans. Actually, our friends Matt and Aaron have had some really interesting wildlife stories that have definitely made us keep alert. Our friend Aaron just recently had an experience where she was skijoring with her 3 dogs in an area right close to Fairbanks, and she actually had a cow moose, jump, or she was bedded down by the trail, and the moose jumped into her team. And so a skijor is basically you're cross country skiing while being pulled by dogs. So there's only about like an 11-foot distance between maybe you and your dog's butt, and this moose went in between her and her dogs, and she ended up with her ski pole hitting it and trying to push it and keeping, but at the same time keeping her team moving forward. So it's like I was blown away. Like,
so you just gotta know, the wildlife, what they're capable of.
Like for us with dogs, it's also porcupines. There's an incredible amount of porcupines out here, and you have to think, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and your dog gets tagged by a porcupine, that's something you have to address out there. So you have to have like needle nose pliers when you go out when you have dogs, because you need to pull those out, or have duct tape to be able to duct tape your dog's legs together while you pull out 25, 50, 75 quills. So we haven't had any insane bear encounters. We definitely have heard stories, and they're very scary, some of them. I've had some bear encounters doing field work, but it's just a part of running. And actually it does affect running. Like for us especially, it's nerve-wracking. And early last spring, we were going to go run around the Pinnell Trail, and we hopped out of the car, and this guy said, "Hey, just so you know, there's fresh grizzly tracks, right there. And, it's springtime. They're coming out of hibernation. They're hungry." And it was really windy, so you knew bear spray wouldn't be a powerful tool. So sometimes you just have to be,
I was so excited when I heard him say that. I was like, great, time to get back in the truck. Like, because I was already like, bears. And then he gets out and he's like, yeah, there's fresh grizzly. I'm like, yep, not today, man.
I was
but we ended up going to a different spot where it was like a maintained road. Yeah. And it was, the great thing about Alaska trail running too is you actually usually start kind of like the gorge. Like you'll have these epic climbs, and then you'll hit these ridges, and there's so much ridge running here. And the
ridge running is incredible.
And that's where you can see bears from a safe distance, and you can feel protected and okay, I have vantage points on them. But the climb, up to the ridge, you're like, all right, there's bushes around me, and what was that sound? And stuff like that.
To talk about the ridge running, so we were living in the Alaska range for a little while, and although there weren't really many trails where we were, particularly along the Denali Highway, there was endless ridge running where you could just hop out of your car. It was all public land. Just run right up onto these ridges and make your own adventure. Things also to consider is hunting season. Hunting is one of the biggest, is a huge deal here in Alaska with subsistence hunting. That's just, there's hunting too, but there's also, this is kind of, people rely on this for survival, to harvest these animals. And so that was a big reality, was you had to think about when you were running and you're wearing orange, and if you were going to be in certain zones during hunting season. So it's things you have to consider.
It's not surprising, but it is also fascinating to sort of hear about the layers of it's not just trail running. It's, we take for granted the fact that we can just drive to a trailhead, hop on the trail, go get our 10-miler or 20-miler, get back to our car and head home, and maybe even hit up some pizza on the way back or something. But you go to a trail run in Alaska, and it just sounds like you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for a myriad of things. I hadn't even thought of, if you go trail running with dogs, you have to bring pliers and duct tape so you could potentially remove porcupine quills. It's
the fact that you may be super remote.
It's all things that I think I'm not surprised by it, but I'm also like, I just wouldn't have thought of that. Just wouldn't think that those additional layers and it's so good to have friends that tell you these things, because I imagine you either learn the hard way or you learn from someone who learned the hard way, and you do your best to like keep up with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like
go ahead.
and just like the how vast and the different landscapes of Alaska, wildlife is different depending on where you go. We have interior grizzly bears where you go down more towards the coast where there are salmon streams, and you start getting into brown bears. So you have different behaviors of bears and black bears. There's
the black bears are the more predatory. Like they like to stalk people. They're
there's just just considerations. Like, is it getting close to hibernation season? Is it wintertime when there are no bears? Like,
right.
It's really nice. Like now it feels nice to like just go out and not worry about it.
Bears.
Although I don't know if you heard the story about in Haines, Alaska, where there was a skier who got nailed by a hibernating bear. Actually got mauled. He survived. Wrong place at the wrong time and ended up getting mauled by a bear.
I mean, he accidentally stumbled on a bear den with a mom and her cub, and mom came out and was like, opened a can of whoop ass, and the cow mauled him, or the sow mauled him, but mauled him, but he rolled away, like played dead and rolled down the mountain.
And then also in Haines, the black bear that was hibernating in an outhouse, and the woman, I think it was a woman, she like literally sat down and just got the bear swat. And
I did see that story.
Yeah. So it's
I'm like trying to lift my jaw back up.
You will never use an outhouse in Alaska.
not without like
hello?
Staring, making noise. Hey bear, hey bear. Hey bear. What is it doing out there?
Are you okay in there?
Yeah. So probably look at it. We check our outhouse every day.
Yeah, right. So let's. I do want to talk a bit about the race. Let's sort of wrap up the show here. We'll move into our after show here in a moment as well. But again, this is going to be part one.
We can talk to you guys for hours.
We're scratching the surface here, but I do want to talk a little bit about the race because Jen, you absolutely crushed it out there from what it sounds like. But give us sort of the lay. Like, did you know that it was going to happen this weekend, or was that a surprise? Tell us what happened.
What happened so early on when we got to Fairbanks, I was like, all right, I'm ready to like start looking at what Fairbanks has to offer for the trail racing season. I know I'm not going to be traveling for any epic races because of COVID and all that stuff. So like, what can I do locally and really get to know my area? And I found a couple of great things. A lot of people like jumped in because races, we're so lucky to even have any options right now. And so I found the Tanana River Challenge, which Jeff and I both signed up for, which is coming up, like still to come. And then I found this Chena River to Ridge run. And I was actually way more intrigued by this run, than the Tanana River, because it was more mountainous. There was just more dynamics. I liked the course. I liked the course a lot. And it looked pretty challenging. And so I was like, it's full. I'm just going to sign up for the wait list. So I did that, and like, I forget when that was. It was sometime in December. And again, like didn't like waitlisted great. And it was like a week before the race where I got the email that's like, congratulations, you've been selected to run the Chena River to Ridge, blah, blah, blah. Like you made it off the wait list basically. And then I ran around my workplace trying to ask everyone's advice about like whether or not, I'm like, I know I'm slightly undertrained. Should I do this? Everyone, and no one said no, of course not. They're like, yeah, everyone gave me their different bits of advice. So because I had to answer really quickly. So I said yes. And I was like, sweet, I've got my first race. Like it's going to be I'm excited about it. And then all of a sudden the forecast rolled in for the upcoming week. And I was like, that can't be right. Like that's just wrong. And it was just snow, slightly warm, which was great. But it just kept snowing. And so they went out and groomed right before all this snow. And then it just got really deep, really fast. And I was scared.
So one thing about grooming, when we say grooming,
so
essentially what they do is the trail, because the snow is just kind of just landed. So what they do is they go over it with a snow machine and then a groomer, which can be anything from a pallet, like a wood pallet or tires. And it basically compacts the snow, and then it sets up so that it's hard, so that you're not punching through.
Yeah.
So
ideally not punching through. Yeah. So So it kept snowing, and then race updates were coming in the form of like, all right, there's 8 inches of fresh snow predicted between now on Thursday and the race day. Like, be prepared, type of deal. I'm like, be prepared. Like, where's the cancellation notice? Like, come on. Like, I'm like, when am I gonna get like, yeah, this is a really dumb idea. We're not gonna go through with this race. And then I had another friend who was running it, and I was texting him trying to get a pulse on like his vibe, and he's like, this is Alaska. Like, welcome to Alaska. Like, put your big girl pants on and stop like whining, basically. I'm like, I've just never done anything like this before. And there's one checkpoint. So it was 16 and a half miles in. The climbing happened basically between mile 8.5 and mile 14 and a half. And there was about 3,000 vertical feet of climbing, and it was all under really, really soft snow. And then you have kind of some rollies after that, and then you hit a checkpoint at 16 and a half. And there were so many things to consider, from like hypothermia to fatigue in the middle of nowhere, to legitimately like, what if all systems fail? Like frostbite. I mean, you can't stay still for too long. And it's so much moisture management and just thermoregulation management that you have to be on your game with. And as much as I'd had a couple of solid long training runs, I'm still learning all of that stuff for subarctic temperatures. Like, and it changes all the time in what I'm learning. So I don't get anxious to race. I get really excited, and I'm like, I'm going to go do my thing. Like, I don't care how I feel. Like, I just get to go run. And I was like, I don't think this is going to feel like a run. I think this is going to feel like I am death marching for 26 miles through 8 inches of snow.
Yeah.
And so then you're thinking about, how do I keep snow out of my shoes? Because if I get snow in my shoes and then it gets wet, and I wear a waterproof shoe up here to keep heat in, but the problem with that is it doesn't let moisture out. So it's kind of, again, another double-edged sword. And so like, if I get my feet wet and then I have to slow down and then my feet get cold, okay, I better have like hot hands and hot feet on me. I better make sure I have an emergency blanket, which I didn't, which I felt really insecure about because I forgot it. And like headlamps, even though, you start at 10 in the morning and you're, expecting it's 26 miles, right? Like, every 50K I've ever run, I've run faster than what I just did out there on Saturday. So you're forecasting all of these things, and it was just all so new and so fresh. So I was really nervous. And then, as soon as we started, I don't know, I felt like myself, and everyone had humor around, and there was just good vibes everywhere. And it felt like this community came together to celebrate the fact they could race today, and they could go do this thing. And so all of those nerves just kind of washed away, but it was the hardest. I mean, I've run, a handful of 100-milers and, a lot of just other ultras in general. And this was one of the hardest things I've ever done in terms of having to move through those conditions. Luckily, it was like 10 degrees that day, so it was warm. And it could have been in the negatives, and it would have been a different story, but everything was great. I learned so much, and I had a really great time, and I was really freaking sore.
Well, a huge congratulations. Second place, right?
Yeah. Brian Atkinson was the guy who beat me, and he was the skier who's like, I'm not skiing this.
Literally switched from skiing to running minutes before the race.
Literally, yeah, right before. So I was just like, wow.
I'd also just I'd like to make a solid though plug for like when we are able to kind of resume a little bit more normal with racing. There are incredible races up here. Like the White Mountain 100 is a 100-mile. It's again a multi-sport run that happens in the White Mountains in the wintertime. Yeah. And Chena Ridge, like River to Ridge, again another winter. Like, I would never think to do these. Like, it sounds insane and even to travel, but Alaska is really awesome to see in the wintertime. I think there's incredible beauty in that during this season. And I would, if anyone's like just on the fence, like, I don't know if I want to, it sounds kind of intimidating. I would really encourage it.
Just buy all the base layers, get a good puffy coat, and come up. Like, it's super dry. Yeah. It's so great. Like, you don't get wet from, like, it's, it's just, it's.
I think I would look at these and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm not doing a running race in the snow, but.
I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah.
I'm not. Snow racing. is.
That's what I sort of love about it too. Is this is so different from what we experience down here, even in the Northwest. In the Northwest, we're really proud of where we live. We are proud of our mountains and our snow culture, and we have these forests and these mountains that are seasonal, and we're proud of it because the region's so unique. And to hear you guys talk about Alaska for you now is sort of, it brings that same sort of uniqueness to mind. It has the beautiful mountains. It has seasonality that we don't really have here, or at least it's way different than what we have here that you guys are probably familiar with. And just the level of preparedness that you need to have, and confidence and awareness. Like there's just so much additional layers and levels to trail running and just adventuring and sport in general in Alaska. It's I mean, just this conversation, I know we're just scratching the surface, but it's given me a new appreciation. I want to point out that our guests tonight, Jeff and Jen, are coming to us live from Alaska. This is part 1 of 2. We sort of set this up on purpose because this conversation isn't complete. We have a lot more to talk about with Jeff and Jen that we will continue in a future episode, specifically around mushing and dog culture and how ultra running and the parallels between these two sports, because they were involved a lot in the mushing world for the last year. One of the primary reasons they moved up there. We didn't touch on that tonight. We will touch on that in part 2 when we get a chance to sit down with Jeff and Jen again at a future date. And that's something like I'm really excited to kind of dig into. And I know Jeff and Jen have a lot to chat about with that. So we'll definitely answer questions around that stuff.
I just heard something.
Something outside?
Yeah.
Pizza? Ice cream? No.
A bear.
A bear?
Bear.
So we're going to kind of wrap up the main show. We'll move into the after show. But Jeff and Jen, can you let our audience know where they can find you on social? I realize we're talking, you mentioned earlier, like doing stuff for the gram and however often you guys want to update. But if people want to follow you and kind of see these Alaskan adventures play out, where could they find you?
Yeah, I think for me, Instagram, Junebug 2008.
Yeah, and I'm same thing. Instagram, Jen with 2 N's, Gwen Love at Jen Gwen Love. Yeah, that's the one.
You got it.
You got it.
You can email her.
Yeah.
She prefers emails.
I really like snail mail.
She'll send you photos.
Speaking of snail mail, we did mail you a Christmas card and it came back to our house. So we will resend that.
Oh, yay. Please do.
It made a trip up to Alaska and it decided it was like, we're going to go back to Washington.
It's like, this isn't going to get past the border or something like that. It is so great to have you on the show tonight, Jeff and Jen. So please stick around. We'll have you join us in the after show there. But our guests tonight, Jeff and Jen, are just some of our favorite people on the planet. They're both incredible, talented outdoor enthusiasts and adventurers. And getting a chance to chat with them and sort of catch up has been a delight. I feel like it's been a long time since we've actually got to chat with them. But that's not the end of the show, because again, I mentioned that we do have an after show. You can join us over at patreon.com/thegingerrunner, and you can join all of our after shows, both archived and live. But even before we get to that, we have 2 last pieces of business here. First, Chucking at 50K. So this has been an exciting thing that race directors Tyler, Kevin, and Chrissy have been doing with the Chucking at 50K. It's a local 50K here, but they've gone global with their virtual version of it this year since they've had to cancel the 2021 version. And they're doing a really cool creative thing with it. Over the last couple of months, they have different challenges that sort of relate to the different sections of the course. So tonight we're going to be giving away, well, actually Chrissy via video is going to be giving away some prizes to the winners of the second section of this course. There is still time to join the third and final leg of this virtual run. You can go to chuckinut50krace.com. There's more information there. And all registrants for the 2021 virtual registration will give priority to the 2022 race. And I believe that they are virtual only for 2021. They decided this very recently. So next year will be in person, and you'll get priority registration if you register for this year's virtual run. Little shout out to Pacific Multisports. They are the registration and results hub. Just want to mention that. And of course, the winners will be posted to the chuckinut50krace.com website right after tonight's live show. And that's it. So without further ado, I do want to just play the video where Chrissy announces the winners, and then we'll announce our GR Crew Member of the Week. Chrissy, take it away.
Thanks for having us again, Ethan and Kim. A few quick updates. Runner packets shipped out last Friday, so keep your eye out in the mail if you select the mail option at registration. For those that have or chose the local pickup, we will be at Wander Brewing on Sunday, March 7th from 3 to 6 p.m. We'd love to see you. Please mask up. Wander's giving $1 off 4 packs. And we will have shirts and silly pints for sale. And remember, registration is still open. This has been a virtual event that goes on for 3 months. And the final segment, the Chuckanut 50K, the full course, we're open. We want to have as many people run the 50K as would like to join us. So on to the awards. Hoka sponsored the segment 7, Out and Back on the Interurban, Time to Fly on the Interurban. Some speedsters on this section. The Masters who reported the highest average speed over the distance. Our Masters winners were Damon Kruger and Gretchen Walla. Each of them will go home with a pair of shoes. We will mail them to you. And our open field, so under 40, Connor Crowley and Shelby Traeger will each receive $100 cash. And we had 2 more pairs of shoes. We did a random prize draw, and Colleen Rice and Lindsay Anderson will take those. For segment 8, Patagonia sponsored the segment with 2 high endurance kits. Check out the website. They're an awesome setup to get you to the peak and back. Our highest elevation gain for the 18 miles, the middle 18 of the Chuckanut 50K, was Dimitri Kiefer, 7,154 feet in his 18 miles. And Virginia Reinhardt reported 5,745 feet in her 25 miles. Each of them will receive a high endurance kit from Patagonia, and Patagonia's cash prize go to the speedsters. Greg Pappas ran the middle 18 in 2 hours, 52 minutes, and 5 seconds. And Christina Randrup ran the middle 18 in 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 35 seconds. Congrats. These will be awesome. You'll receive an email from me connecting you to the sponsors to have these prizes sent out. In our final month of the 3-month challenge, we are excited to do the full 50K course. If you have not participated in any segments, you are still invited to register. We'd love you to join us for the 50K. Registration is still open on Pacific Multisports. We also have race bibs available on our website to download, whether you're running locally so we can spot you if we happen to be on the trails, or in your backyard. Help us celebrate this race. We're so thankful that you are supporting us through this virtual year, and we really look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you, Chrissy and Tyler and Kevin. They put on a fantastic in-person race. We're stoked that they were able to make the shift this year to do a virtual version. Can't wait for 2022. Honestly.
I always want to talk to Chrissy. Like when her video's playing, I just want to be like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Great video, Chrissy.
Like,
this is great.
So like,
how are you?
She can't hear me.
Yeah, she can't hear you.
She can't hear me.
So the last segment of the show is our segment that we call our GR Crew Member of the Week, where we get to recognize a member of the community who goes above and beyond and does something dang awesome out there. Kim, who is this week's GR Crew Member of the Week?
This week's GR Crew Member of the Week was an easy one for me. Scout Phillips. If you don't know Scout, you're missing out.
Scout's in the chat now.
Scout is in the chat right now. Scout has gone above and beyond and has created something really fun for the GR Crew community, designed and is setting up what they are calling March Madness. So it's a way for the community to come together, to celebrate each other, to encourage each other, and to motivate each other, since we are now, entering 13 months of this pandemic. Yeah. We could all use a little virtual high five to get us through the month of March. Scout, we appreciate you. You are putting in so much work and just helping us with building this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scout. From the bottom of our hearts, as Kim just mentioned, you help make this community better. So if you would like to join this March Madness, all you got to do is join the GR Crew. Patreon.com/thegingerrunner. Lots of information there and on the Discord server that we have for GR Crew members and stuff like that. That is it for tonight's Ginger Runner Live, episode 344. We're moving right into the after show with Jeff and Jen. Thanks again for tuning in tonight, everybody. We'll see you next week for more fun. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. Bye.
ginger runner.